Story 1. I have to go with Charizard. It is a dragon that breathes fire and flies. Who wouldn't want that in their life? Story 2. Haunter. I like ghost Pokemon, and I remember the Haunter, Ghastly, and Gengar episode being the first one I saw. I loved their mischievous nature. If we are talking about legendary Pokemon, I would have to say Ho-Oh because it is a big rainbow bird. Story 3. Umbreon. I am a big fan of Dark-type Pokemon, and this is my favorite. It is also excellent to use in games because it is a tank. Story 4. In the series, Meowth learned to walk and speak like a human because of love. Everything went wrong, but he still found the best friends in Jesse and James, and they endured all of his weird shenanigans. Even to the point where James threw away his precious bottle cap collection to save Meowth from public humiliation. 4Kids did many changes to the series we saw on TV. The original Japanese ending is called Nyasu no Yuta, Meowth's Song. It is a ballad where Meowth sings to the moon because it is shiny, round, and lonely. He wonders if there is another lonely being staring at the moon tonight so they can be a little less lonely. In one of the CD dramas that came out with the series, Meowth makes a secret party for all of his friends. He buys cake and everything, but none of his friends show up. That does not sadden him, so he grabs his guitar and rocks the entire planet nevertheless. This is referenced in the Meowth trophy for Super Smash Bros. Melee, where Meowth is holding an electric guitar ready to rock. Finally, that one quote, we do have a lot in common. The same earth, the same hair, the same sky. Maybe if we started looking at what's the same instead of always looking at what's different. Well, who knows? Oh, and I like cats. Meowth for the win. Story 5. I have one I have not seen yet, Porygon. The idea of a Pokemon that was created from technology and can literally surf the web by entering cyberspace was really cool to me as a kid. Story 6. Bidoof. Bidoof. Bidoof is on fire. We do not need any water. Let that Pokemon burn. I am dying, Squirtle. Story 7. Quagsire is an adorable and quirky creature that I find very interesting. Growlithe is a super loyal dog. Story 8. Totodile or Sandshrew were my favorite cards before they and all the rest mysteriously disappeared. Mom. Story 9. The first time I played Pokemon Emerald, I was drawn to Lunatone and Solrock. Those two Meteorite Pokemon have been my favorites ever since. Story 10. The Yellow Mouse, because nothing is more nostalgic to me than having Pikachu follow me around from my first Pokemon game. Story 11. Slowpoke. Story 12. Bulbasaur was my first starter. He is an angry boy in the anime. Story 13. Mareep has been my favorite Pokemon since the first games. Story 14. Clefairy is so cute, pink, and squishy, but it is that Snaggletooth that steals my heart. Story 15. Weevil is cute, strong, and cool all at once. It gives a cheeky sort of vibe that I like. Story 16. Flareon. I know it is not usually the favorite evolution and does not have the best stats, but it is a fire type, my favorite type, with my favorite colors, and it is just a pretty Pokemon. I have made 3 different cosplays of it and am planning my 4th. Story 17. I never played Pokemon until I was an adult, but when I started playing I got a Houndour that evolved into a Houndoom. I absolutely love the character design of Houndoom and I kind of want one as a pet. Story 18. Electrode. As an adult who cannot draw to save his life, Electrode was the easiest to draw, and I loved his smirk. I work in education and mental health. One of my students at a high school gifted me a painting he made of Electrode when he saw me working on a styrofoam model of it in an art class we were in. Another student was inspired and gifted me a Voltorb she painted. I was so touched by their gesture. My attempt at art inspiring theirs, then them gifting it to me as a surprise, that I had their work framed and keep it on my wall at home. Working the jobs I do is hard, but moments like that are what make it special. Story 19. The Fire Monkey. It was my very first Pokemon and I fell in love with it. I have since tried many other Pokemon, but none of them compare to my dear Infernape. Story 20. Porygon Z, because I was traded a 6 individual values, level 1 Porygon once in Wonder Trade, and I used it throughout the whole run. The Pokemon is an absolute killer with its special attack. Story 21. Togekiss is cute and has a near-perfect set of tools that limit opponents' options. Paraflinch, permanent critical hits, considerable bulk, access to follow me, and good defensive typing. What else would you want? Story 22. It is Turtwig because I recently started liking tortoises. Story 23. Easy Snorlax. We have the same hobbies. Eating, sleeping, and occasionally blocking the road for no reason. Story 24. Maybe Cub1 or Jengar. I have always had a soft spot for Sand/2. Story 25. Jengar is purple. He used to float. His mega evolution was powerful. Story 26. Eevee, more specifically Sylveon. I do not know why. I just like the designs. I was even trying to collect all the Eevee evolution cards at one point. Story 27. Wheezing fan here. Love its belly symbol and Team Rocket. Story 28. Haunter always had a special place in my heart for some reason. Story 29. Scyther. I always thought he was unique. He has been my favorite since Pokémon Red for Game Boy. Story 30. Jengar is a ghost that can use a variety of powerful special moves, and I love the color purple. Story 31. Psyduck has a constant headache, is not very bright, and is a bit unusual just like me. Story 32. Dunsparce is an absolute mess, and I am all for it. It is one of the earliest Pokémon I saw while playing Pokémon Gold back in the day. Story 33. Jengar and its scary grin. Imagine the day I saw shiny Mega Jengar. I almost fainted in bliss. Story 34. Mr. Mime. Mime makes mime hand motion. Story 35. Only one. Maybe one of Mudkip, Ghastly, Heracross, Zubat, Chansey, and Vaporeon. Story 36. If you think I am not asking my date their favorite Pokémon, you are clearly wrong. Personally, I am quite fond of Mimikyu, Tyranitar, and Minchin. Story 37. Pikachu is known for its bright yellow color and large, expressive eyes. Story 38. I am not in the fan community at all, but I have always found Squirtle the most aesthetically pleasing. Story 39. Mine is Aipom. Loved Ash and never stopped liking Aipom. Story 40. Lucario and Luxray are my favorite Pokémon. One reason is their color, as I love black and dark blue designs. Another reason is the fact that I am a cat person. Story 41. Ghastly, especially the one from the Maiden's Peak episode. He was literally in God mode. Story 42. Haunter and Jengar are popular because of the Ghost Tower episode of Pokémon. Story 43. Jengar is known for its mischievous, ghostly, and playful demeanor. Story 44. Squirtle. I do not know anything about Pokémon, but when I was 12, my family was about to move, and a younger girl gave me a Squirtle card. I thought it was sweet and kept it with me for years. It was in the late 1990s. Story 45. Charizard was the first shiny Pokémon I ever obtained, all the way in the 1990s. I am still a little upset that I lost the card. Story 46. Snorlax is great because A. He is adorable, and B. No one expects you to have a strong normal-type Pokémon. The first thing I do in any battle is use 3 to 4 amnesia moves in a row. Then special attacks are virtually useless against him. He already has a ridiculous defense stat, so physical attacks against him do almost nothing. I always make him hold a Rocky helmet, so any physical damage he takes is pretty much the same damage dealt to the enemy. If his health drops below 50%, he uses rest to fully recover. Then it is just a matter of using Body Slam until the enemy is defeated. I have a Snorlax tattoo. I love him very much. Story 47. Tyranitar. Hyper Beam and Crunch worked well for me. 10 out of 10, always get Larvitar as soon as possible. Story 48. Eevee is adorable and can evolve to fit whatever team I have. Story 49. Dratini is both a dragon type and cute. Of course, much more has emerged since then. Story 50. Mismagius is chosen because it is a monotype ghost Pokémon with high special attack and speed, and has a unique aesthetic. Story 51. Kabutops and Scyther. I may have a type when thinking about it more. Story 52. Quagsire is a big blue cute brainless blob. Wooper is a close second. Story 53. Raichu. No idea why, but it is impressive. Also, Frostless is really cool and I like its typing. Story 54. I am first generation. I was always Ghost or Water type. Haunter or maybe Poliwhirl. Fighting type, I would choose Primeape. Story 55. Torchic was my first Pokémon. I started with Pokémon Emerald on an emulator, and because of that, I always picked the fire type. I never finished a game, but I'll never forget training my first Torchic Flame as a little kid. Story 56. Rhyperior. It was my first individual value perfect Pokémon that I bred myself. Also, he looks like a badass. Story 57. Squirtle. Most of the other games I played, I chose grass type. Among those, Rowlet and Trico were my favorites. Story 58. Snorlax is both my favorite Pokémon and my spirit Pokémon. Story 59. Masquerain. I used to play the card game with my children. I built a nearly unbeatable deck based around Masquerain. The children would spend a lot of time working out ways to beat that deck. It was great fun for all of us. Story 60. Drifloon is adorable and a natural predator of my least favorite pest. Story 61. Snorlax. He eats until he feels full and then sleeps until he needs to eat again. These are just the surface reasons because he is a master powerhouse of a Pokémon who can learn almost any move. Story 62. Psyduck has a great design and a charming little noise. Golduck, on the other hand, looks kind of dumb. I only know Pokémon from the first generation or two. Story 63. It's usually a toss-up between Gengar and Shinx. When I was a young kid, I had one VHS tape with 3 episodes of the original Pokémon series. The first episode was about Ash trying to beat Sabrina's Kadabra by going to get a ghost-type Pokémon. Gengar was so creepy and goofy, and I loved him. Then, when I played my first Pokémon Journey, Pokémon Platinum, not counting the Stadium games or Snap or any of those, Shinx was the first Pokémon I caught, and he was in my party all the way through to beating Cynthia. Story 64. Snorlax is a large Pokémon that primarily eats and sleeps, living a peaceful life. Story 65. It's always been Arcanine and Alakazam. I have 2 of the holographic extra cards in glass cases at my desk. Story 66. Gengar is the first Pokémon I ever saw and is still my favorite. It appears on the opening title screen of both the Red and Blue Game Boy games. Immediately after the Game Freak logo, a small animation of Gengar fighting either Nidorino or Jigglypuff appears. It is also used as the intro to the first episode of the television show. Story 67. Gyarados. Because if you have a high-level one, people know you are dedicated. It is a dragon type. Story 68. Mewtwo when it comes to legendary Pokémon, Charizard otherwise. Story 69. Squirtle, I have always chosen it from the 3 starters in different games, also because of the last evolution form, Blastoise. A big turtle with cannons coming out of the shell, definitely yes. Story 70. I was never a big Pokémon fan, but I played Pokémon Legends Arceus last year and thought Luxray was very cool. Story 71. Lickitung because who decided a huge tongue on a pink gecko was going to become an official Pokémon. Cute little fellow though. Story 72. Mudkip was my first ever Pokémon. It is absolutely cute and inspired by axolotls, which are native to my country. It is also extremely useful and powerful when it evolves. Story 73. Sizer. Before this current generation, my boy had 11 resistances, 1 weakness, access to Baton Pass, Swords Dance, Superpower, Roost, and Bullet Punch. He is so good he could easily compete in Uber tier. Plus, Technician is a great ability for him. Story 74. Arcanine. Because I am very simple. I love dogs and I love fire. Story 75. Garchomp reminds me of kaijus from Ultraman and Jet Jaguar. Story 76. Togepi. When I was a kid, I played him in Pokémon Fired, and I swear his metronome could defeat every other Pokémon. Story 77. Clefable. The first Pokémon I trained to level 100, having caught it in Pokémon Yellow as a kid and later transferred to Pokémon Gold. Just a cheerful pink blob with fire punch, thunder punch, ice punch, and metronome. I found the idea hilarious. Story 78. Jigglypuff, because in the original television series, she sings and it makes everyone go to sleep. Then she gets mad and draws funny faces on them all with a black marker. At the time, it was cute and hilarious. Story 79. Eevee and all the evolutions. Love the adorable awesomeness. Story 80. Charizard. I grew up when having a holographic Charizard made you the coolest kid in school. I was also a big fan of Mutwo, Blastoise, and Lugia. Story 81. Squirtle, because he has the deal with its shades and cannons later. Just an overall Chad. Story 82. Jigglypuff. I also get very angry if I do not receive enough attention. Story 83. Squirtle. He is excellent. And the Squirtle squad perfect. Story 84. Gyarados, the beast, starts off as a flailing, useless fish, only to become one of the strongest and most impressive Pokémon in the original series. I always imagine someone who has a Magikarp pond, like a koi pond, coming outside one day to see that one has evolved into the behemoth that is Gyarados. Magikarp and Gyarados also resonate with my personal life. Story 85. Sudowoodo, that twirl and flourish cracks me up every time. Story 86. Giratina is a powerful centipede dragon from another dimension that destroys anything in its path. Additionally, I can give it treats and scratches. Story 87. Gengar. I could legitimately have one with me at all times like Ash has Pikachu, but you wouldn't even know because he is my shadow. I don't know, he is just really cool to me. Story 88. Every time I look at a Magmar, I see the pain in his eyes from always being paraded around, being forced to come out of that Pokeball, and having to battle Charizard. You can tell Magmar just wants to chill. I am Magmar, we are all Magmar. Story 89. Jigglypuff is cute and will help me never be sleep-deprived. Story 90. Arcanine is powerful, looks majestic, and has never let me down. Story 91. Wigglytuff stares right into your soul and then headbutts you to death. Story 92. Charizard is 100 times cooler in appearance than the second best Pokémon. Story 93. Psyduck has my heart forever. That poor little guy is just trying to get through life with a crippling headache and fear of what will happen if people stress him out too much. I see you. Story 94. Ambipom. I grew up watching the show when I was young and loved Apom so much. When I got my hands on Sun and Moon, my ex hatched and trained a shiny Apom for me with near-perfect stats. I evolved him into Ambipom and absolutely dominated teams with him. I love my little monkey guy. Story 95. Charmander has the best backstory and is also very adorable. Story 96. Lopunny is a bunny and just vibing. Incredibly cute if you put the ears in a hair tie as well. I know its reputation online, but I really like its adorable booniness. The second and third are Sneasler and Salazzle. I want them to hang around our cosmetics and beautician store and give some customers someone to vibe with while I focus. Story 97. Empoleon. Piplup was the starter of my first Pokemon playthrough ever, and since then, there will always be a special place in my heart for Empoleon. Story 98. I love Charmander. He was so sweet and cute in the show, but Articuno is my all-time favorite. I thought it was majestic and beautiful, and I always wanted one. Story 99. Furret is a 6-foot-long fluffy creature. Need I say more? Story 100. Tangela. It is the first card I remember having. My guitar also acquired a Tangela sticker. I have no idea where it came from. Story 101. Easily, Gengar, the first ghost type, was a total badass from day one. It was strong and fast, a 10 out of 10 Pokemon. Story 102. One of my all-time favorites is Sandshrew because it was the first and only Pokemon card I ever got. It is an adorable armadillo-like creature and the best. That or Cubone because I was a dinosaur kid and loved the land before time. Cubone is the most hardcore orphaned baby dinosaur around. Story 103. Farfetch'd. Because it is a bird. With a leak. Story 104. Crobat because I love flying types and Crobat's design is everything. Story 105. Finally, a good question. Blaziken, because she was my first fully evolved Pokemon. Story 106. That depends on many factors, but I admit I have a particularly soft spot for Metagross. Story 107. Alakazam has a cool design, is a psychic type, and has an extremely high intelligence quotient. Story 108. Narrowing this answer to one is almost impossible at this point. I will say Sableye because he is a creepy little gremlin who eats jewels. I love his little grabby hands and mischievous grin. Story 109. Eevee is special because it can evolve into many different versions of itself. Story 110. Meowth, because they are cute and I would never have to work. Story 111. Mismagius. I love the sounds they make. Their cries can actually cause headaches or hallucinations. Story 112. Dusclops has a cute design while being useful for competitive play. Story 113. Charizard. I'm a sucker for a fire starter, and I think dragons are cool. Yes, I know it is not a dragon type, but it is a winged lizard that breathes fire. What do you want from me? Story 114. Totodile. My first Pokemon ever when I got Pokemon Crystal for Christmas in 2000. I love his little smile and willingness to bite everything and everyone. Story 115. Charmander? I don't know why, but it must be connected to my fire element and Sagittarius energy. Story 116. Mudkip. I have always loved the design, and I grew up alongside him to the point that friends think of me when they see anything that resembles one. On top of that, when it evolves, it gets one of the best type combinations ever and becomes a staple of rain teams, especially my Mega Swampert with good stats and a good move pool. What is not to love about him? The shiny is gorgeous as well. Story 117. Umbreon is my favorite because it is like a gothic cat and one of the best Pokemon concepts ever created. When I decided it was my favorite, it was quite an unusual choice. Everyone else would pick Charizard, Pikachu, or Mewtwo. However, in the last 20 years, Umbreon has overtaken Mewtwo in popularity and rivals the other two very well. Turns out my choice is not as unique as I thought. Story 118. Psyduck because he is a migraine-prone, mentally ill lunatic. I used to have a small Psyduck figure crawling out of a pill bottle. Story 119. Gengar has maximum speed. You can defeat him with 2 hits, but knowing that I have knocked out one of your Pokemon weak to Ghost-type moves and then used Curse on your next healthy Pokemon, it will also be defeated. Story 120. Sandshrew and Sandslash. I have always loved hedgehogs, and I accidentally caught a shiny one when I was younger. That is how I learned about shiny Pokemon. It was awesome. Story 121. Breloom is an impressive design, the first instance of a grass and fighting combination. It is decent in the competitive stage, particularly in the lower tiers, and has a unique character. Story 122. Bulbasaur is the literal and figurative #1 Pokemon. Story 123. Eevee because she is my Pokemon Go buddy, and Snorlax because Snorlax is my child's favorite thing in the world. Story 124. Bulbasaur and its evolutions are well loved, especially Bulbasaur itself. I love its character in the original cartoons, a tough, stubborn little tank. Story 125. Breloom has a solid moveset and a cool design. It is from my favorite region. Story 126. Alolan Raichu is a rare combination of psychic and electric types. It floats on its tail, which is very impressive. Story 127. I can't choose between my top 3. Agrin, the Iron Tyrannosaurus Rex. Aerodactyl, the prehistoric flying menace. Haunter, just a great ghost with a simple design. Groudon is the best legendary, though. Story 128. Squirtle is my original choice, and I am sticking by him no matter what. Story 129. Jigglypuff. She is so sassy and round. Her little song is a beat. Jigglypuff. Story 130. Mewtwo is a super powerful bipedal feline with a moody outlook on life who questions the nature of his existence. What is not to love? Story 131. Latios. I love his design. The dragon and psychic typing is impressive, and its special move Luster Purge is as powerful as it sounds. Story 132. Dodrio is an angry 3-headed bird. I do not know. The first time I encountered Dojo in Pokemon Blue as a kid, I just loved him. Story 133. Bulbasaur is the only one I know, and I love him. Story 134. Umbreon. I couldn't tell you why specifically, but it is my favorite across generations, and the generation it was introduced in is my favorite. The runner-up is the entire Cyndaquil line. Story 135. Infernape. Hands down. Give my man fighting type moves and he'll defeat any opponent with any element any day. Water types. They don't matter if he moves first and punches the particles out of them. He decreases the humidity with every monkey noise. My man doesn't care what you've got. Rock? No. Grass? Ha. That one fire-type move is just for you. Send them to the Pokemon gods same-day shipping. Don't even come at me. My man one-on-one with literal deities. And once they're beaten halfway into a coma, I'm strolling. Up with my snapback and putting their butt in a pocket prison. No mercy. I'd say he has conflicts with everyone, but there's nobody left. He is the Wolverine of Pokemon. He can and will climb on your face and knees strike the holy living hallelujah out of you. I rest my case. Story 136. I can't pick just one. For years, it has rotated between Gengar, Lugia, and Tyrant Rum. Gengar was my champion on my team the first time I beat the Elite Four in Pokemon Red. Lugia looks cool, and it just chills at the bottom of the sea and sings a cool song. Tyrant Rum is my favorite because I like Tyrannosaurus. Story 137. Looks over to the Umbreon plush sitting behind them. Could not tell you. Story 138. Rayquaza. It is a giant green serpent dragon that eats meteorites and defends the Earth from aliens. How can you not like that? I also really like Deoxys. Such a cool design and idea for a Pokemon. Story 139. Cannot say I have one. They are all pretty awesome. Story 140. Ivysaur/Bulbasaur. I don't know why, but they are my favorites. I'm sure I misspelled their names. Story 141. I love Vaporeons because they are soft and squishy. I would hug one every time I sleep because I feel lonely. I would care for it with all my heart and protect it from any harmful people because I do not want it to hurt a human while defending itself. Story 142. Umbreon. Design and shiny forms are the definition of beauty. Story 143. Magnezone is a magnet UFO which is very cool, and it is also a really good Pokemon. Story 144. Jigglypuff is without a doubt the strongest Pokemon in the game. Story 145. The Larvitar line is my favorite. Is Godzilla. I also enjoy the Caterpie line. We called my son Big when he was little because he would inchworm his way around the crib, so I always associate Caterpie with him in my head. Story 146. Electivire. I love electric-type Pokemon in general and just how fun he is. Punchy electric type with lots of move coverage makes Electivire a must-have for my team. Story 147. Gyarados and Alakazam were my favorites forever, and then Arcanine moved into the top 3. If I had a gun to my head, I think I would choose Gyarados because he could probably defeat Alakazam and Arcanine. Story 148. Krogunk does not hesitate to shut his friend Brock down when he is being inappropriate. Story 149. Bellsprout is a happy little plant. In the show, it slapped Pikachu around. It has a good wiggle. I love plants. Story 150. Gengar is the first final evolution of the ghost type. It is purple and mischievous. What is not to love? Story 151. Aggron is what happens when you take things I think are cool and combine them. A large bipedal dinosaur covered in metal that eats rocks and has a signature move of headbutting objects with great force. If that was not enough, it evolves into a mechanical form with extendable horns. It is very impressive. Story 152. Gengar, Charizard, and Oddish. Tyranitar, Tyrant Rum, Dano, and Druddigan are up there too. Story 153. There is something so impressive about Mawile. I cannot quite put it into words. Story 154. Any playthrough I do, I will always have either a Gengar or Mamoswine. Gengar because it is cool and Mamoswine because I am a sucker for the ice types. Story 155. Is it normal that I am reading all these answers and hearing their voice lines in my head? Story 156. Cub 1. There is something so endearing about its tough yet tragic backstory. The way it carries its mother's skull as a helmet and its bond with loss really adds depth to its character. Plus, it is a total fighter despite all it has been through. Always had a soft spot for this little bone warrior. Story 157. Litwick is adorable, and its name makes me laugh. It has cool evolutions and can learn some pretty decent moves. Story 158. Mew and Mimikyu. Mew because it is a cute mutated fetus cat. You had to go through a lot of effort to get it back in the day. Mimikyu was very strong when it was introduced and is also cute. Story 159. Blastoise, Nidoking, Poliwrath, Magneton. Awesome offensive and defensive Pokémon who were underutilized in the anime, and because of that, they were never as popular. Outside of the first generation, give me Torkoal, Heracross, and Talonflame. Story 160. Squirtle is a cool character with stylish sunglasses and is a top-tier Pokémon. You cannot convince me otherwise. Story 161. Gyarados is one of the most impressive Pokémon. What makes it special is that it evolves from Magikarp, a Pokémon considered useless because it is a poor fighter, to put it mildly. If you are patient with Magikarp, you are rewarded with a fearsome sea serpent that literally terrifies enemies. Story 162. Mook. When I played Pokémon Ultra Sun, I did not want to use the same Pokémon I did in my playthrough of Sun, so I randomly picked Pokémon I would not usually choose. I stumbled upon a Grimer pretty early on, and it grew on me so much that it became my favorite Pokémon and Poison my favorite type. Story 163. Jolteon. I was playing Pokémon Stadium with my cousin, and I don't know how, but I beat his whole team with only Jolteon. I would assume that he picked Pokémon who are weak against electric types, but since that day, Jolteon has been my favorite. Story 164. Porygon is just a silly little guy. It is so unfair that he is not allowed in the anime after that incident. The scene did not even involve Porygon. The little buddy did nothing wrong. Story 165. Articuno and most ice types generally have designs that look more graceful. Story 166. Charizard is so brutal and does not listen to authority. I love it. Story 167. I think Kingler is my favorite. Crustaceans are interesting to learn about, and I have always favored them as I progress through the Pokédex. Story 168. Piplup, Emolga, Zekrom, Chandelure, Tyranitar, Meganium, Gardevoir. Story 169. Gengar. We are both stubby and round. I'm a huge fan of ghost types in general. That original episode with the haunted house shenanigans sold me, to be honest. The school one-day training sealed it. I adore misunderstood, mischievous characters, especially ones that also have dark and morbid lore attached. Story 170. Alolan Vulpix or normal Vulpix. I love Vulpix. Person sitting in bed with a Vulpix stuffed animal. Story 171. Raichu when he defeated Pikachu in the Indigo League. The bigger, fatter mouse instantly became my favorite. Story 172. That's a hard choice. I really love Frostless, Empoleon, Giratina, Salazzle, and Gardevoir. Story 173. I will stand behind grass types being the best starter. Sure, it is cool to have a fire-breathing lizard or a turtle with cannons, but Vine Whip is objectively such a useful move that the others do not compare. Grass Pokémon can essentially use Vine Whip to have long arms that can grab things and climb. Story 174. Slowbro. I like its design. It is hilarious but looks menacing. It is actually clueless and always happy. Story 175. Gengar, the first shiny I got, carried me through the Elite Four of Leaf Green. I did not even know it was shiny until I transferred it over the years from game to game. Later, I obtained its Mega Stone and thought, wow, it is cool that its Mega form makes it look like a ghost. Then I played Pokémon Tournament and found out that was not normal. Story 176. Dragonite is definitely my top choice. It's a dragon that delivers mail. What's not to love about that? Also, Ditto is adorable and definitely my second favorite. I also have a soft spot for Shuckle. Story 177, either Turtwig or Skarmory. Turtwig because he was my first ever Pokemon, named him Twiggy, and Skarmory because it was the first Pokemon I bred for individual values. Story 178, Magikarp. He is so stupid, I love it. My second favorite is a tie between Sylveon and Dragonair. Story 179, Duskull. I love cute little ghost characters with masks. I am thinking about getting a tattoo for Halloween. Story 180. I'm not really into Pokemon, my 12-year-old is, but that Mr. Mime character in Detective Pikachu was hilarious. Story 181. Ninetales, I always try to get a Vulpix as early as possible. Story 182. This is the right kind of question. For me, I have a special place in my heart for Pikachu, and I love Charmander. I also love Bulbasaur, Eevee, and Togepi. I do not know if I can pick just one favorite. Story 183. Absol just looks cool, and I always chose it for my team in every run of Ruby that I did. Story 184. Absol was the first Pokemon I ever decided to catch in my first Pokemon game, Pokemon Emerald. Story 185. Gardevoir because she is a queen. Mismagius because I love most ghost types and it looks fantastic. Story 186. Stunfisk uses Dark Pulse with a powerful fire-type move. Sucker Punch, Toxic, Venoshock, and Flamethrower. Story 187. Gengar. Always loved the character. We played a Pokemon tabletop role-playing game once and had to bribe the game master to start with a Ghastly. Story 188. Vulpix is the cutest. I love that they created an Alolan version. Ninetales is so elegant as well. It is my favorite Pokemon card that I had as a kid. Story 189. Mutwo is incredibly powerful and intelligent. He developed what he believed was the perfect plan. Pokemon genocide and replacement with superior Pokemon. After some time, he realized it was not the final solution. He accepted that he had made a mistake and changed course. Many people are not capable of such self-awareness. Story 190. Lapras. I always leveled it up so it was one of my strongest. Story 191. Lapras because it looks really cool and majestic. Also, in the yellow version, the Pokédex entry says that it is going extinct, and that made 8-year-old me really concerned. Story 192. This is a broad question, and my answer depends on how you categorize the Pokemon. To elaborate, favorite starter, Charizard and Chimchar. I usually pick fire types, but not every time. Favorite legendary Pokemon, Darkrai and Latios. Darkrai was overpowered and cool, and I like Latios' design. Favorite shiny Pokemon, Ditto and Psyduck because they are blue when shiny. Favorite Pokemon outside of all the above categories. Wobbuffet because it is derpy and hilarious to see it randomly appear in the anime and just yell Wobbuffet. Story 193. Greninja and Rayquaza. 1. Greninja is so cool and powerful. I love frogs and ninjas. 2. Rayquaza is an ancient dragon. It was super cool. When I played Pokemon Emerald, all my mind was on catching Rayquaza. I love dragons and frogs. Who didn't think that Greninja and Rayquaza were super cool? Story 194. Snorlax loves to eat and sleep. I like to eat and sleep. No brainer. Story 195. Oddish is a beetroot-looking creature with amazing stomping feet. Story 196. Meowth is the only one you can have a conversation with other than Arceus and other unique ones. Story 197. Gengar causes me to be obsessed with Shadow Ball. He looks very cool. Story 198. Snorlax only eats and sleeps. It takes 50% less damage and can destroy any poison ingested. I want to be Snorlax. Story 199. I have a soft spot for Infernape and love fire-type Pokemon. My first experience was Generation 4 Diamond. My dad had Pearl and also used Infernape as a starter, so I copied him. I have replayed Generation 4 about 5 times now, and each time it was with my Infernape. Story 200. Currently, it is Boltund. It has enough moves to nearly solo shield and is agile enough to run orbits around a thrown ball because it is too fast. Additionally, dogs are awesome, Story 201. Fampy. As a child, I lost my composure in the movie theater when that random Pokemon trainer sent out a Donphan in the opening scene. Story 202. Squirtle. When I was a little kid, I was gifted a giant Squirtle plushie. Story 203. Clefable is adorable, connected to the moon and myths. Story 204. My kids had a card once that showed a normal-looking man with an average physique. His name was Doug or Dave, something like that. That is my favorite Pokemon. Story 205. Quagsire, because you can tell by his face that life is good. Story 206. Dragonite is the original dragon type. Whenever it appeared in the anime, it had golden retriever energy despite being one of the most powerful Pokemon. For instance, it delivered mail in Pokémon, the first movie. Story 207. Politoed. He has good vibes. He is a water type. Story 208. I have always been partial to Gengar because of its appearance. Purple is one of my favorite colors, so I usually choose it for decorations or accessories. Story 209. Cub1 looks tough with the skull. When you learn the backstory of why he wears the skull, you will feel emotional. Story 210. All the original starters. Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. Also Snorlax. No top 1, just a top tier. Story 211. Gengar. The mischievous look, the red eyes, the floating, and the insanity of Gigantamax. Story 212. Magmar for no special reason. Caught one in blue and decided it would be my favorite. Got it to level 100 without rare candies. I have to mention Bulbasaur, Venusaur, Ivysaur, Eevee, Cramorant, and Wishiwashi. Story 213. Jolteon, because yellow was my favorite color as a kid, and now I have a nostalgic connection to her. Story 214. Mutwo and Gengar. I never really connected with any of the later generation Pokemon. To me, they are just very cool. Story 215. Dunsparce is a cute little bug with no skills or evolution until recently. All it does is being cute. The skill issue may lie with the trainer, whose only interaction with the Pokemon franchise is Pokemon Go. Story 216. Charizard, you can fly on his back. His tail is fire, he breathes fire, and he is grumpy. 5 out of 5 stars. Best pet. Story 217. Heliolisk. I love that its abilities take advantage of 3 different weather conditions. Its design is very cute and creative. Its solar panel frills suit the franchise's core theme of environmentalism. It is also fun that it is one of the only electric types to evolve through a stone that is not the Thunderstone, and the only non-grass type to evolve with a Sunstone. Heliolisk is not competitively strong, but sometimes it is fun to play in lower tiers, and it can at least pivot with a fast volt switch. Story 218. Dusknoir. My babies Damon and Darman. I encountered Damon in a funny way. I was playing Pokemon Go and said, I wish I could find a ghost-type Pokemon. I was happy to find the next Pokemon was Duskull. I happily raised him and he evolved into Dusclops and then Dusknoir. He was my buddy and I walked with him everywhere. Then in Sword and Shield, I found a Dusknoir and named him Darman. By the end of the game, I replayed it and brought him with me from Pokemon Home just to hang out with him. I love my boys, and the Dusk evolution line has a special place in my heart. Story 219. Charmander. As a child, I thought they were cool. As an adult, I still think they are cool. Story 220. Haunter, because I feel like everyone pays more attention to Gengar. I love his little hands. Story 221. My favorite card was a Mega Charizard EX I foolishly traded. As for Pokemon, I do not know, maybe Darkrai, Meloetta, Xerneas, Fletchinder, Superior, and perhaps above all, Reshiram. Story 222. Bulbasaur. Because he got so much hate when Pokemon Red and Blue came out, I picked my little Bulbasaur up and loved him forever. Story 223. Milotic, because I think it is pretty and also Alolan Ninetales. Story 224. Greninja is a ninja frog. And XYZ was fantastic. Story 225. I would love to go on a date with Charizard. I would gladly split the bill and invite him upstairs after walking me home just to watch some Netflix. Story 226. Umbreon and Oshawott. I have always really liked that one fox or dog Pokémon that has the power to shapeshift into other Pokémon. It is super adorable. I like Snivy 2, and Mimikyu, and Cub 1. Story 227. Piku is a cute Pikachu, and Heracross has a goofy design and good defense. Story 228. Cub 1 is my guy. He looks kind of like Charmander but with a cool hat. Also, Emo Charmander. Story 229. Garchomp, because I found that cave under the bridge by accident, without even knowing the existence of that Pokémon. I used him from Gibble to Garchomp and beat Cynthia and her fake Garchomp with mine. Story 230. Jigglypuff has a mean streak, which I love. Incidentally, two separate friendship groups used to call me Jigglypuff behind my back because we have the same angry face, apparently. Neither friendship group knew each other or that they used the same nickname for me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.